Taking a look at your final box score here, UConn getting it done across the board from Newton to Sanogo to Hawkins, leading the way there in double digits. This one really never in doubt in the first half. A big lead at half did dwindle to 5 for but a moment in the second half, but then a late run to put it away by the Huskies crowns them national champions for the 2022-23 season. Chip Patterson, Kyle Boone in to offer instant reaction to the national title game here, fellas. It's the UConn Huskies at the top of the heap, 64 down to 1, and it's the Huskies standing above the rest. Chip, first word goes to you here. Trying to make sense of this tournament, we will in a moment, but in this 40 minutes of basketball, what stood out to you?
3 levels to this for me. Number one, I think this UConn team was underrated in terms of being elite defensively. It's something that Danny Hurley, after the national semifinal, came out and said, I am a defensive guy. I'm not going to do an impression, but you understand that this is a foundational aspect of what he wants out of his UConn Huskies. And what they were able to do first against an explosive Miami team and then here against San Diego State was just really, really impressive. I think we underrate the length that they have on the perimeter. Obviously, we know the size that they have inside with Klingon and, of course, with Adama Sanogo. And just the way that they were able to make San Diego State uncomfortable is just so impressive throughout. And that is something that has been going on throughout the year, and especially in non-conference play. There's also the next level, which is the coach, Danny Hurley, who wants to make defense part of that foundation. The fact that he is able to add himself to an exclusive list of active coaches with national championships since 2000. And then there's the program itself, which of course has really been able to flex its muscles here, winning its 5th national championship since 1999. So much to unpack here. Again, the team, the coach, the program, all of it showing out a great night for the UConn Huskies.
Yeah, Chip, I have to agree with you. The defense was really impressive. And to me, I think for UConn, the most impressive thing was the mettle that they showed in this game. San Diego State came out punching early. They were really impressive to start this game out of the gates. UConn kind of had its backs against the wall, and they seemed to be able to flip a switch. They held San Diego State in a stretch there in the first half without any baskets for 11 minutes. Their defense was really disruptive against San Diego State, the length, the athleticism. And then in the second half, it started to get a little bit tight. San Diego State got it within 5 points. It was 60-55. UConn's lead was down to 5. And UConn says, all right, game on. They go on a 9-0 run. Poof, game is over. So the athleticism, the way that this team just has gamers really from top to bottom on this roster, I think is really impressive. San Diego State was really bothered by UConn's length, and they were not able to really finish around the rim. I thought that really stood out in this game. So really impressive win. I think the better team won this game, and UConn did it in really impressive fashion.
I want to address what we're looking at right now, fellas, here. UConn here, their closest game, 13 points in this tournament. They become the first team to win all 6 games in the tournament by 13 or more points. You can copy and paste a lot of those statements you just offered as our reason why, Kyle. But as you take a look at this dominance, how will you sort of situate this team historically in what was a tournament that we really struggled to put our finger on?
Yeah, this is one of the most dominant NCAA tournament runs we've seen from any team in the modern era. And I think this UConn team will go down as one of the best NCAA tournament performers we've ever seen. And this UConn team was a number 4 seed coming into the NCAA tournament. You have to keep that in mind. They started the season unranked. They opened 14-0, and they looked like one of the best teams in college basketball. They climbed all the way up to number 2 in the AP poll and immediately started having some struggles. They lost 6 of their next 8 games. And I think people just kind of wrote off UConn as a team that was really good, but maybe not a contender, maybe not even the best team in their own conference. They were able to figure things out down the stretch, and the pieces just seemed to click perfectly. The roster that Dan Hurley was able to put together, really, really impressive. Inside and out, this Huskies team just has so much depth, and they were able to come at teams in a number of different ways. I think the way that they did this was really, really impressive.
Dominant statistically, yes. And even the eye test says that this has been one of the best teams in all of college basketball. And I love, and I mean this, I love when our national champion at the end of the NCAA tournament was one of the best teams in college basketball. And that is what UConn has been at its best all throughout the year. You have your one hiccup, but other than that, you're fantastic. All that said, Joe, if you're going to ask me to rank this among the great tournament runs, then I'm going to have to mention that you played a team from the MAC, then you played West Coast Conference, then you did play the SEC, but a team that was playing on Wednesday in the SEC tournament, and then going on to play another team from the West Coast Conference before beating an ACC champion that was a 5 seed and then a Mountain West champion that was a 5 seed. So if we're going to talk about all-time tournament runs statistically, absolutely. Am I happy with UConn as a champion? Yes, they were one of the best teams in all of college basketball. But listen, we got to be honest here. We can't be caught up in the moment. Mm-hmm. This was a fortunate path for UConn to take on the way to cutting down nets.
I mean, if you want to put numbers to it, they're just the third team in the seeding era to win the national title without defeating a top 2 seed at any point in that run, joining 1990 UNLV and 2019 Virginia. You can only play the teams that are in front of you, and Danny Hurley had his team ready to play those opponents. What does a moment like this tournament run, Chip, do for a coach like Hurley, his standing in the profession? In 2020, he said, "We will be back." And emphatically, they put a period on that statement here on Monday night.
Oh, without a doubt. I'm glad you mentioned this because that was really what was echoing in my brain here in the final moments of regulation, because the list of coaches who are active in the game and have won national championships in the 21st century is elite. We are talking Tom Izzo, Bill Self, John Calipari, Rick Pitino, Tony Bennett, Scott Drew, and Dan Hurley. That company is elite, and you immediately vault yourself to the top of the sport, because we have seen with the exits of Jim Boeheim, Mike Krzyzewski, Roy Williams, Jay Wright, we've seen a lot of those national championships from the last 23, 24 years. We've seen that leave the game. And so to see somebody who obviously basketball has been such a huge part of his life all throughout his career, now to be able to get to this point with this particular program, it's really special. It's unique. And now we start to already, Gary Parrish is already getting together his top 25-1 for the upcoming season. And UConn, with what they could bring back, is going to be in potential to maybe be in that conversation for being a repeat contender. So the amazing position for Danny Hurley, but a lot more to go now that he has reached this point.
Yeah, Chip, and when Dan Hurley took over this UConn program, what did he say at his opening press conference? He said, "You better get us now. You better get us now." And this was kind of foreshadowing of a future success for this UConn team. He's always been very confident in his ability to coach this program, and I think there was some naysayers. They didn't have some early success at UConn, but the roster he was able to put together this year, the way that they were able to establish the depth, the size, the length on this team, I think is so impressive. And I think UConn is going to be in the conversation now. We're going to be talking about UConn once again as one of college basketball's blue bloods. This is a momentum-changing win for UConn's program. Dan Hurley is not going anywhere. This is a program that's going to be able to build upon its momentum. I would imagine they'll continue to recruit at a high level. And as Chip mentioned, this is a program that could legitimately be the #1 team in the preseason going into next year, depending on some of the NBA decisions that are probably imminent for this UConn team. So you celebrate the win now, but I think you can't not look ahead at what's potentially on tap for UConn, which is they could be one of the first teams in recent memory to go back-to-back just because of the roster they could bring back next year.
Yeah, it is the nature of the beast. We're always looking ahead to the next one. As an athletic department here, UConn has raised the banner between the men's and the women's team 13 of the last 24 seasons. So you want to talk about blue bloods on both sides, I think the conversation might start right there. A conversation does need to be had about San Diego State and this run that they made. Their experience non-existent beyond the Sweet 16, and here they find themselves on the grandest stage Monday night. They don't perform the way they'd like to, shot at 32% from the field. Kyle, I'll go to you here. What was their shortcoming on Monday night? Outside of just the shooting, where did you see them out of the gate struggle and really spell their ultimate demise?
Yeah, it was obviously the shooting moose, but more specifically, it was the layups. UConn's length was really disruptive as San Diego State was trying to create and attack the basket. They did not make a layup in this game until the second half, and they really struggled against UConn's length. I think that was probably the key factor in this game. Donovan Clingan only played 5 minutes in the first half, and he had some foul trouble early. And still, UConn was up by 12 points at halftime. I think that probably, to me, was kind of the key metric that kind of spelled disaster for San Diego State, because Clingan, so disruptive, one of the best big man defenders in college basketball. And he was a difference maker in the second half. Adama Sanogo was really good in the post. And San Diego State was really not able to find a rhythm on offense. And that was kind of the question mark coming into this game. You know, San Diego State can play defense at a high level. They're really good at running teams off the three-point line, but their offense just could not click tonight, and I think the length that UConn had just totally disrupted any rhythm that they couldn't establish.
Fellas, it was a heck of a tournament, a wild one at that, and we appreciate you for helping us make sense of it all. A hearty thank you from all of us here at HQ for putting in the work. Chip Patterson, Kyle Boone, great work, guys.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.